everyone. Welcome to the, what are we on, Pete? Fourth episode of the Casandra Properties podcast. Time's flying over here, folks. We're having a good time. I have to say thank you to everyone that is jumping on board. We have such an exciting audience that's building. We like to say we have an international audience now because we do have an international audience. We now have people listening all over the world, which is pretty cool considering we've been doing this for a few weeks. Today, we have on our show the king of comps, big boy, Brian McGowan. He is the most senior member of the Casandra Properties family. How we doing, Bri?
Doing great. The king of comps. I like that.
That's you, man.
Thank you.
It's always been. So we're going to talk a bit today about the history, how Brian ended up at Casandra, what an integral role he's played over the years, the dynamic between us, which could not find two people that are more opposite in their approach. Outside of fishing, I think that we're pretty much on opposite pages for
almost everything. We end up at the same spot, though.
Yes, we always end up at the same spot, but we never take the same path, which is pretty cool. We're going to talk about technology, some exciting things we have going on there. We're going to talk about construction. We're going to talk about opportunities we see in the market. We're going to talk about M-Land and the opportunities that we believe are right in front of us that we're certainly going to take advantage of. So let's start, Bri. Let's get into the history. How long have we been working together now?
It's almost 11 years. 11 years, yeah.
Wow.
Flies.
So we met back in 2009.
I was 21 years old, yeah. Actually, I couldn't buy alcohol before.
Wow.
Yeah. Now I have a wife, kids, everything. Yeah.
Unbelievable. Yeah, we have baby Brioche.
Baby Brioche. He's another big boy just like me.
He is a big boy. So if you're watching, you'll see why we called Brian Big Boy. We had technical difficulties right away. Our headset wire wasn't long enough because Brian is just a massive 6'4", 6'5" guy. But when you get to meet him and you get to know him, he's the most gentle giant that you'll ever find in your life. He's a wonderful guy. So anyway, 2009. Our first interview, right?
Yep.
Was at a pizza place.
Pier 76.
Pier 76.
Yep.
That's back when we were really working on North Shore.
Yep.
And we were fighting very hard to shake the stigma of the North Shore and validate comps, which we did.
Yeah, it was also a tough time. I mean, the phones weren't ringing then.
No, that was in
the crash.
The crash, right? You started. It was 2009. You were still. Where were you at that point?
I was at Wagner College, actually, up the road.
And you started as an intern.
Started as an intern. I had to complete an internship for graduation, and actually it was introduced by a mutual friend, Anthony. He's like, "Look, I have a potential internship for you. Would you give it a shot?" So I was like, "Sure." I mean, I went to school for finance, marketing. Real estate never even crossed my mind. I was always fascinated by architecture and a lot of those aspects, but it never crossed my mind.
So Brian brought to the table for us instantly, I mean, immediately, a creative eye that there's not a creative bone in my body, right? You're the one that taught me about the value of brand. Now, in 2009, it was a different world. And
completely different.
Brand was important, not as important as it is today. But to your credit, you absolutely saw the critical nature of developing a brand, and you always had far bigger goals than I did.
Maybe not bigger goals, maybe more ambitious goals.
Yes.
Ambitious, but not bigger, just a little bit different.
Well,
I'll never forget that one meeting we had when we sat down. We had a few questions. Where do you see the company in 3 years from now, 5 years from now? Et cetera. And the way I think my responses were, all right, I want to have 5 offices nationally, and I want to have 5 offices locally.
Right.
It's the same, but bigger, yes.
Yeah, so you gave me, quite honestly, the courage to expand my horizons, right? You always thought, and probably your greatest attribute is that you don't have a fear. Like we have a joke what plaque is Brian going to have in front of his office today? Is it Brian MD?
Yep.
Is it
Lawyer.
Brian the lawyer today? Is it Brian whatever it may be? Because you're afraid of nothing.
I honestly believe I could do anything. I truly, deep down, believe that, and I don't think anything can stop us. I really don't.
Where does that come from?
I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, I've always been a determined person. Maybe sports, football, being a captain, leader, potentially that. But honestly, I feel like if you put your mind to anything, you can do anything.
So the book that we were working through at that point was Letting Go of the Vine, I believe. That was the management book when we sat down and we were talking about
that's what it was.
Company goals and where we were and just, again, continuing to push me. So I want to just go back and talk a little bit about that, the leadership and football. I played ball when I was in high school. I was undersized. I had the heart, but I didn't have the size. Yep. And back then I had torn my ACL, and it just was a different world than an ACL tear today. So that was it for me. But you excelled, like, in a big way, right?
Yeah. I was pretty, to be humble, I was pretty good.
He was better than pretty good, guys.
In high school, I excelled. I won Best Player of the Year for Catholic High School Football League. Ended up getting a bunch of full ride offers to multiple different colleges. Ended up picking Wagner College to stay home, so my parents can see my games and to stay local with family and friends. But I firmly believe organized team sports, especially football, shaped the man I am today, without a doubt. I wouldn't have it any other way. It taught me how to work for things. It taught me how to work in a team environment, camaraderie, how to lead, how to understand people, what their needs are, what makes them drive, excel. I give a lot of credit to what I do in life today to football, quite honestly.
So for Brian's size, he is shockingly fast. And I learned that one night, which was also outside of Pier 76, oddly enough.
76 one night, yeah.
Because we would always have the banter, I'm the older guy, and of course, I'm 60 pounds lighter than him and half a foot, maybe more, shorter than him. But it's just my personality. I would always say I'd whoop him if we ever lined up against each other. So one night, after a few cocktails, we finally did decide to line up against each other. And you planted me into a car so lightning fast that it was. I've never seen feet move in person that fast for a guy of your size. I don't think I've ever seen feet move that fast, period.
I'm big, but when I was in college, I was a tackle traditionally in high school. So I had to move inside because the tackles are 6'8", and I'm only 6'3", 6'4", so it's a little bit different. So that's what I kind of pride myself on is technique, honing your craft. I mean, if you work at it, and
this is the first time I ever admit that you actually did.
Well, this is the first. Right now, this is the first time.
This is the first time.
There was banana peels back then. The wind was blowing.
Everything.
To the left.
I had a sore throat for a week and a half. For those of us who are fans of a certain movie. Anyway, so Brian comes on and he is right away brings a totally different approach to the company. Again, as you're all learning, I'm head down and go, and Brian is much more of a measured approach. Brian sits back and takes a look at every avenue, really a brilliant critical thinker, a strategic thinker, which slows the process down, and we'll get into those rubs as we move along, right? I always feel like we got to go, and you slow it down, which is good, because then we usually end up in a place where we're going at a good pace, but in the most efficient path. So completely to my surprise, you start bringing in branding boards and, you're showing up at meetings. I'm like, what is this guy doing? And you had like all different logos and you had all these different colors, and the brand today that is Casandra Properties was your baby. Yeah. That was, a difficult sell. It was a difficult sell for me because if you can imagine, folks, you're trying to build a company and signage was something that we had decided way early on, even before Brian was with the company. We were just going to sign signs anywhere we could, and people start to know that brand. So to have people recognize what was the script CP and the house, right? as the company evolved, and couldn't have been more right, you felt we needed a bolder
Without a doubt, yeah.
message that spoke to who we were trying to be.
And the multiple audiences we served too as well. I mean, we were very heavy commercial, and we also serviced the residential market too as well, which we always had aspirations to continue and grow that residential market, which we have today, and it's doing great. So we wanted to appeal to both sectors.
So how soon after you started did you realize that the branding was completely wrong and that you were going to take that on as part of what you did?
I mean, instantly, I knew real estate was what I wanted to do. I mean, I was going to school for finance at a 9-to-5 job, and instantly I realized that real estate is absolutely incredible. Every single day is different. Every single property is different. It allowed me to use my creative side to problem my creative side and actually my mathematics side for numbers to problem solve and think outside the box to make projects flourish. That I absolutely loved about real estate. Actually, I was completely blessed to come to the market. People always tell me I was crazy. I'm joining the real estate industry at one of its worst times ever, but I am absolutely blessed to join during that time. The things I've learned while not making money, and if I can make money during a time where the phones aren't ringing,
Yep.
I'm going to make money hand over fist when times are good. So I'm completely blessed for that. But coming into the office, I saw just a pool of talent, sitting there. And quite honestly, I've never, at that time, I was younger, I've never heard of you guys before. You heard of a lot of the household name brands around Staten Island, but I never heard of Casandra Properties. Yet, when I saw the inner workings on the projects and of size and scale you guys were working on, I was like, these guys need to get out there. I mean,
We had the exact opposite mentality.
Yeah.
It was head down, don't make a ripple in the pond. You know, we're humble by nature, so we try to stay out of the press. We tried to stay away from any accolades whatsoever, and that was such an incalculable mistake.
Yeah, you guys were doing some, huge things back then, huge things.
Yeah, it was an interesting time. 2009 was the worst year. 2009 and even 10.
Yeah, it was tough. It was definitely tough.
Yeah, it was tough.
Really tough.
But we adapted very quickly. We saw that there was going to be much bigger of a fallout than anyone was leading on with defaulted notes and short sales. So we very quickly went from having zero experience in, I'm not talking about a house short sale. I'm talking about we were short selling
Retail centers,
mega notes.
Unfinished condo product.
20,
land,
30, $40 million notes.
Yeah.
And, we learned at that point about the Madison Realty Capitals and the Meadows and the Iron States and these folks that are using different sources of capital that are tied to a velocity metric, right? The money has to be placed, good market or bad, the interest accrues to your debt and or equity partners, right? So we found that if we were able to get on the other side of the transaction and we cultivated bank relationships, right? We spent a good bit of time getting in front of the banks, showing them that we had this skill set. Now, if you can imagine, again, back then, there was none of the branding. There was none of the promotion. So I remember it was like hand-to-hand combat. Every meeting was a grind to get the folks in the room to understand that this group of kids from Staten Island really know what they're doing. And then to get a financial institution and a buyer, and again, we're talking institutional stuff. We're not talking about, Joe Blow buying a piece of property. To trust in companies that were not the CBREs, they weren't the Cushion Wakes, they weren't these household names in the city, that had a 100-year history of note dispositions, was remarkably challenging, but we knew the market cold.
Not only trust us and our brand, but Staten Island in general. None of these big boys were here. None of these financial institutions were here, wanting to lend here. It was a real challenge bringing these guys to Staten Island. We were selling ourselves and selling Staten Island at the same time over and over again.
Yep.
over and over. We actually, quite honestly, we branded, I believe, the North Shore of Staten Island for sure.
I think you're right.
We definitely did. As far as all the marketing packages we put out, highlighting the highlights in St. George, the infrastructure, et cetera. I mean, nobody else was doing that.
And we saw that everywhere, right?
Everywhere.
Little snippets of our...
Yeah. Everywhere. It actually, at first, it bothered me seeing all my material everywhere. Then I realized that that's actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
People are taking what we're doing and they're trying to replicate it. So
Imitation is the highest form of flattery.
Doing something right.
Yeah.
And we were.
And even today, we still have folks that send us over things from different websites and different marketing materials that literally is our work product with a different name on top.
Without a doubt.
You know, you can
2 weeks later, our work product changes. So
Right.
I mean, they're in the dust. So we're always evolving.
Yeah.
Always.
And look, the marketing is the face of it. Then you got to do the work.
That's the real meat and potatoes. It's
That's
the numbers, the work, the comps. I mean, every single package we put together is real. It's numbers that aren't fake. They're real, set in stone. And for any client that I work with, and I know James too personally, everything that we hand them is the full story, the full package. That's the way James taught me to do business, and that's the right way to do business.
Trust.
Yep.
You've got to build trust with your clients. No, you know, we like to say here, you're not going to retire on one deal. And what we mean by that is it's never worth it, and it's not ethically acceptable here to burn someone on the way in on a deal, because there's ways to be creative with numbers. But if you give the raw, honest picture and you believe in the product and you start to build a track record, you do it the right way.
Yep.
And you really started to make a name for yourself with comps. And we call him the king of comps for two reasons. He builds the most thorough comp packages ever. And let's explain that, right? Comp packages, what does that mean? So that means comparable packages. When we're looking at a site and we're looking at an asset for a buyer or a seller, it is a snapshot, right, of, what do you do, 6 months, 12 months?
It all depends on the property, but roughly 6 months. That's your most accurate data, depending on the time in the market, but 6 months, without a doubt. It's basically a complete snapshot of the property comparables with the demographics, with infrastructure plans, with new transportation coming to the city initiatives built in. We kind of like to put together a whole package, seeing every single aspect that may affect a property, whether it be federal regulation, state regulation. I mean, everything we take into account, grant money and funding too as well. Even the funding aspect. We love to see our funding options when we're looking at properties.
Forecast.
So, we forecast everything.
Yeah.
We know exactly the buyers. At the end of the day, from that comp package, we're not only informing the buyers, we're also, we know what buyer we're targeting to as well.
So the other reason we call him the king of comps is because he has set some of the highest comps for sales on Staten Island ever. If you have an asset of size, you'd be very hard-pressed to find someone better suited to handle it than Brian because of his methodical and pragmatic approach. So I think we have here some, if you're watching, Petey's pulling up on the ones and twos, some of the articles, but let's talk briefly about it. So Edgewater Plaza was one of the highest office building comps. It was by far the highest office building comp down there at that time. I think you sold that for
It was $21.5 million. That was actually a property that was in default. The servicer ended up selling it. The building was roughly 250,000 square feet. It was an old converted warehouse. There wasn't much usable square footage actually in that building. Sandy also wiped out the first 2 floors. So at the end of the day, we were at about $225 a square foot for a defaulted property of size on the waterfront, which was absolutely incredible. And 2 years later, that was in 17, 2 years later, they ended up letting that property go for almost it was like $41 million.
$41 million, yeah.
In
Again,
2 years.
in part because of the comp set, the vision, the opportunity, what we saw in the market, what you saw in the market. People at the time were like, "Are you crazy? What kind of number?" folks, if you do the work and you get
Show
between the
numbers,
lines, there is opportunity, right? There is things that people are not seeing, and they sold it, what was then the highest comp, they doubled it, almost doubled it, inside of a 2-year period,
Yep.
which was pretty remarkable. Then we had the mixed use comp, right, which was the View.
Yeah. That was
So-
another great building, yeah.
That was a building that the history of that started before I actually put that assemblage together, back in 2004, 5. We assembled, I think that one was maybe 5 or 6 different lots.
Yeah.
And again, worked with architects and engineers, put together a strategic plan. Building gets sold, or the land gets sold, development play gets funded. 2008 hits. The sponsor decides, not for me, had structured his debt in an appropriate way. Quite honestly, he was able to walk away from it. We then worked with, I think it was Bank of New York and Madison Realty Capital, and we sold it to them as a defaulted note. They picked that up somewhere in the $9 million or $8 million range.
Yeah, it was like $8 million range, but it was also an unfinished product too as well. So.
Right. So we worked with them to get the contractor, everything, literally, folks, from the colors of the tile in the lobby right on down to the layouts and flow.
And that's actually when I joined the team too as well.
Yeah.
We created the brand for the building.
Yep.
The staging.
Something we weren't able to do prior to you being there. That part we had to let go, and you started to lose control at that point. So it was a nice little ribbon that we were able to put on our package. And then that building you sold for 20.
Yeah, it was at that one
21?
was 20 million, I believe.
20 million or 21 million.
But the interesting thing about that is we sold 40 units within that building, all at an average of $555 a square foot. So
Right.
555, yeah. That's,
Which, in retrospect, again
40
now,
units, yes, it's a lot.
as the market starts to settle down, that's going to end up being a value also.
Which the brand in the beginning helped. I mean, we were leasing out those units at incredible numbers. I mean, we were getting roughly $37 a square foot on average for a rental rate for residential, which was unheard of in Staten Island.
Yeah.
Absolutely unheard of.
And then something that we found recently, which I didn't even realize, and you should be so incredibly proud of. So, folks, if you're looking for M land, again, manufacturing land or industrial or warehouses or anything that falls in that segment, you have, if the research is correct, and I'm pretty sure it is, the most dollar-wise sales in that market in the last 3 years total.
Sales and leases. And
Unbelievable.
Actually, I found that out by actually pulling the comps, and I'm looking like, wow, all these deals are mine. Actually,
Hey, I'm good.
Yeah, I'm like, wow. And actually, you actually took a page out of my book. A book was like, you should brand that more. I'm like, yeah.
Absolutely. So that's kind of going to be the value, like we say in every podcast. We want to deliver value to our listeners. So we're going to walk the audience through where we see some mega opportunity right now.
Yep.
Right? So let's talk about, just briefly, before we really dive in on the M stuff, what are you seeing here? Well, actually, it's tied to the M stuff, but post-coronavirus, what do you think is in store for our M or industrial or any of that product type on Staten Island?
Yeah, so we're seeing multiple factors drive this market. One, areas like Red Hook in Brooklyn.
Yep.
A lot of those warehouses are being repurposed to high-rise buildings, condos. Same thing's going on in Queens. Queens numbers have been, constantly outpacing a lot of the other boroughs with Staten Island. A lot of those mom and pop HVAC stores, electrical supply companies are all getting pushed out for different developments, and they're looking for the best bargain within the New York City limits. And we are the last stop. You can't find anything else in Manhattan. The Bronx is kind of tough. A lot of their prices are pretty high. So that's a driving factor too as well. And coronavirus is jump started this supply chain issues within the city still today. I mean, the shortage on pressurized lumber, PVC fences that there's shortages on. It's because we don't have enough warehouse or local distribution. Right now, retailers and warehouse distributors are looking for that last mile stop to reach their clients quicker, more efficiently. I mean, if you go on Amazon, you buy the stuff now and you can get it the same day.
Right.
Everybody is trending that way to try to compete, quite honestly, and to have an address within the New York City limits to save $15 going over the Adda Bridge every single day per truck is a huge savings without a doubt. And I know the IDA, which you're a part of the board there too, as well, is definitely giving incentives to companies to stay within New York and to continue to flourish. Also with manufacturing, I mean, we are an island. A lot of our zoning on Staten Island is manufacturing along the rim, so that opens us up, which we'll speak about. Our waterfront to transportation and shipping, that's our real value here. I mean, we are a hidden gem in that aspect for sure.
So what's happening is folks that are involved in the M world, which could be everything from a company that manufactures widgets to an electrical contractor, right? Literally, and everything in between. They need that zoning, and in other locales, they are rezoning this to residential. And as an electrical contractor or as a manufacturer of widgets, you just can't afford those numbers.
No.
So we have access to the same waterways. In fact, we have the ability on the northern part of Staten Island to have what they call access to open water. There's no bridges. You're able to get out into the Atlantic immediately, and that's starting to get out now. That word is starting to get out. That property is very, very valuable. You don't have to, we talked about this a little bit in the past. You never have to plow the ocean. You don't have to salt the ocean. You don't have to repair the potholes. It's free.
And it's still the cheapest means of transportation, too, as well.
Yeah.
Most efficient.
So as companies are looking to either relocate or make that last mile more efficient, what we learned is that it's not about how much does this marker cost. It's about how much does it cost for me to get this marker to Pete as quickly as possible, right? And having those last stop, or what in the industry they call the last mile.
Last mile, yeah.
That's where we're starting to see these micro logistics centers pop up. Right, we're starting to see
that's going to be the next trend for sure, especially
without a
New York
doubt.
City limits, without a doubt.
Yeah, so traditionally you would need for logistics centers hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of square feet, which is a challenge in New York City to begin with. But they've now drilled that down, and they're finding that consolidating and having more focus. So maybe we can't deliver every one of these types of markers, but maybe out of this micro logistics center, every red marker can be distributed.
Correct. Yeah.
Right? So now you have everybody on the logistics side competing for this space as well. And as we all want to, look, I don't want to get off on a tangent here about global warming, but it doesn't matter in my mind whether you believe in global warming or you don't believe in global warming. It shouldn't matter. We should want to be good stewards of our planet.
Without a doubt.
Period. Right? So we try and stay out of that gauntlet, and we try and stay out of the politics of it, because if you're on one side or the other, discussions get shut down so quickly and nothing productive happens. So believe me, this does tie back, folks. I know seems like I'm way out there, but I'm going to bring it back. So through the water, we're able to take a lot of trucks off our road. We're able to cut a lot of emissions, right? It's a safer, cleaner, greener, more cost-effective way to deliver goods. So for us, it's been an important part of what we've done here to make sure that we're always keeping an eye on that as well, right?
We have to, yeah.
You have this beautiful waterfront property that has so long been overlooked, where folks are starting to wake up and recognize, hey, we could do distribution channels right out of the bay here on the northern part of Staten Island, cheaper, quicker, and at a comp set where in Brooklyn, and we'll talk about this in a moment, some of the comps that Brian has pulled in our competing boroughs, the numbers are so insanely more expensive. We really believe that Staten Island, even post-corona, and maybe even even more because of it being post-corona. There's opportunities here.
Yeah, and the way technology is going too as well is just it's inevitable.
So let's talk about why we think coronavirus has now accelerated the growth in the M market.
So, I mean, the M market was growing tremendously before then. Since 2014, we have almost 2.5 billion square foot that was net absorbed by tenants across the nation, which is incredible. It's one of the highest growing segments. But I think coronavirus is going to spur the small distribution warehouse centers, for example, like the ShopRites, whose delivery service has taken off. Almost every single market on Staten Island or restaurant or anybody selling any type of produce or any goods, quite honestly, has now developed a delivery wing. And when you develop that delivery wing, where are you going to store your goods now? I truly believe what's going to happen is a lot of retailers are going to shrink their footprint and almost do a hybrid of retail with a distribution center maybe in the back so that they could instantly send out their goods.
So distribute right from there.
That's what I believe too as well. I mean, that's what I've been researching. I think that's an efficient model too as well. If you're doing that, you could also get a cheaper price per square foot in a manufacturing zone. You're going to be a destination regardless. People who are coming to you are going to come to you for a certain product, and people who are ordering you, you'll be able to have that ability to either do some light manufacturing and ship from right there, or store your produce and ship from right there. So
let me expand upon this for the audience. So basically, when me and the wife order from Whole Foods now, right, it comes in from New Jersey.
It does, yes.
Right, so I'm on the north part of Staten Island, folks. So if you're coming in from Jersey at the wrong time onto Staten Island, it literally would take me 55 minutes to get from Brian's house to mine. We both live on Staten Island. Now imagine my wife is ordering a couple of times a week. They now have to take that product and distribute it from New Jersey south over the bridge into Staten Island, run that traffic gauntlet to get to me over on the North Shore in West Brighton. So what Brian is talking about is what's going to happen now is these types of stores are going to drop the traditional retail requirements, and you're going to start to see almost all retailers, instead of focusing on, hey, how do I get in the main, most trafficked part of Staten Island to try and allow the audience on this borough to come shop at me, they're going to trade that for, how do I get a more cost-efficient location where I can strategically distribute right from that store?
Without a doubt.
So it's not coming from a warehouse.
No.
It's coming from that store.
Because we do have our size restrictions here, what they're going to do is, quite honestly, what we do. They're going to take a whole analysis of the orders. They're going to stock product that the borough of Staten Island is ordering constantly over and over, showing a history of orders. They're going to stock that product, whether it be pasta, ground beef. They're going to have always those products in stock, and they're just going to operate more efficiently out of a smaller box.
So the retailers and distributors and the government, quite honestly, learned coming out of this that we have major supply chain issues.
Major.
We can't be as reliant as we were internationally and from a regional perspective, nationally, to bring in goods and be able to distribute them in times of interruptions in the process. Sure. So I agree with you 1,000%. I believe that the supply chain issue is addressed by that means directly. Distributing from within the traditional retail store and either retrofitting or seeking locations that, based on the model, say, hey, if we had a location here, don't really care how many people drive by it, don't really care what the pedestrian traffic is, because we know that there is a consistent, proven model of people in this region of Staten Island ordering this amount of product. So if we locate here and we don't have to go over the bridge and we don't have to pay that toll and we don't have to do those things every single time somebody orders, we're going to save a bunch of money. And if you tie that into having access to bring those goods in by boat, you really disrupt the market.
Disrupt it.
Okay.
If you bring it down for a little bit smaller level, I mean, right now Staten Island's unmet retail demand is in the billions.
Yep.
right now we don't have that much, I would say, commercial property ready to be developed for retail space, shopping centers, etc. Our only option left is manufacturing. So to service our residents here, all their retail needs, it's going to have to be from local distribution warehouses. There's no other way.
Yep.
Unless we have a rezoning.
Which they're going to do right out of their stores.
Yep.
Which is really neat. The other opportunity that we're seeing, folks, is funding. So after Superstorm Sandy, and I know we talked about this a little bit last time, but it's very relevant here. There's still $1 billion earmarked from the governor for the seawall, right? And there is, I believe, $400 or $500 million left in the city tranche for improvements. Now, let's put that over in one bucket. Now, I think it was just on, I don't remember what day it was, one day this week or last week, Pelosi proposed a $3 trillion infrastructure bill. So what that means and how does this news impact your decision-making here in little old Staten Island? Well, here's how. When you have that type of capital that is going to be invested in infrastructure improvements, hospitals, roadways, bridges, tunnels, utilities, you have the local contractors in the respective trades getting busy, right? And what happens is we see this on a micro level every single time we go through a market turn. So what that means is we can tell you at a certain point in the market without fail when we see the transition and we're coming out of a down market, contractors are going to get busy. They are going to want to stop renting and they're going to want to buy their own facility, right? So we can pinpoint, and we have done this now through 2 cycles and we're doing it again, when that market is going to heat up.
Sure.
So you have that plus this massive amount of infrastructure, plus this massive amount of funding left over from Sandy, because it's a long entitlement process. It's a very arduous permitting process to build a seawall. There is going to be it's going to be tough to quantify the explosion that we are going to see in M property on this island. You and I have been in lockstep on this. I mean, I would just about wager anything that if you're going to be somewhere in the market in Staten Island, that's where you have to be.
I absolutely love it. I mean, I absolutely love it. If I could tell a company that they could ship their goods from Staten Island and in a few days it arrives at San Francisco, that's incredible. We never had that opportunity until now, quite honestly.
So if you're out there, folks, and you're looking for M property, Brian is the guy. We have a pretty significant inventory of projects that are on the books or set to come on the books. And what we wanted to do this time is every time we go through these cycles, we get a little bit better and we learn a little bit more. So you have a construction background.
Yeah, I was actually a union laborer, 6A. I used to pour concrete in high rises. So I used to pour all the Q decks and the decking of these high-rise buildings.
And you loved it. You enjoy it.
I love working. I just love working with my hands too as well. I mean, I love all aspects of work, quite honestly.
So over the years, I've had the distinct privilege of being Brian's partner on investment projects, smaller stuff that we've done. And we wanted to take this to the next level. So as we see the market timing out and we see what we believe is going to be an unbelievable run where the smaller contractors are going to have an opportunity to do some significant work, we started to put the infrastructure together for a new company.
Yep.
Right? Want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to Staten Island in general. Everybody's saying, "Oh, Staten Island's done. There's no more property to develop. You can't make money there." But we view everything differently. So what we're doing is we're creating a contracting and development company called Staten Contracting, which we will be taking advantage of a lot of these opportunities. We've been doing it for our clients for, I mean, years and years and years, very successfully. And I think it's time that a lot of the ideas that we have that a lot of our clients don't want to do, that we're going to run with for sure and capitalize on to make Staten Island, quite honestly, a better place. We're also not looking to throw together traditional product. We're looking to do something a little bit different that we could put our names on, our brand on, quite honestly, and be proud of.
And it gave us an opportunity to pull the families into it.
Yeah, without a doubt.
So, and what we mean by that is both my wife and Brian's wife, who have been a part of what we've done and supported what we have done for so long, they started to get excited. I think it started probably with like the fix and flip shows,
Yep.
right? They'd be watching those shows. They got excited for it.
Have an idea here, the color of the cabinets.
Yep.
This looks great. Oh, you should try this.
Yep. Now all of a sudden we have our wives on the sites, and they're really adding value to the process. And I actually sent Brian a video the other day of my wife. For those of you who don't know my wife, she's 5 foot tall. Yep. If she's 100 pounds soaking wet, it's a lot. And she's out there with a
chainsaw cutting trees, trimming and pruning trees. Yeah.
She's out there with a chainsaw because she thought that it would open up this area on the side of the house and it would give a better presentation, and it did.
It did.
I didn't expect her to pick up a chainsaw and start ripping and tearing, but it's exciting. So we're through Stag Contracting. We're now working on multiple construction opportunities, and as exciting as anything that we're doing, we have a technology division.
Yes, I'm super excited about that. I mean, tech is where it's at, without a doubt. Every industry is experiencing it. The finance market, you have fintech going on. I mean, even industrial manufacturing, you have the Internet of Things, where the internet is communicating with the assembly lines from remote locations, and these factories are running autonomous. The medical industry, you have telehealth, you have a lot of advancements in medication and absorption of drugs. But the real estate industry, we've been lacking, quite honestly. I mean, me and you say it every single day, like, why isn't this for real estate? Like, why?
Yes.
It doesn't make any sense, quite honestly. And finally, we're going to take advantage of that. We have a few softwares and products and work. I'm also very involved in the idea and the ideology behind cryptocurrency, and
you took me kicking and screaming there.
Well, not so much cryptocurrency, more so about the blockchain and the blockchain's impact it could have on business, manufacturing. I mean, the whole world, quite honestly.
I don't think it's could anymore. I think it's the impact it will have.
Yes, and I definitely want to. I mean, we want to take it and bring it into the real estate world. We've been experimenting with that, and some other softwares that an end user or an investor or an agent can take advantage of. Basically, back to what we were talking about before, our comp packages. So what we're looking to do is build a software that takes into account all the variables that we spoke about, whether it be your location as far as schools being built, infrastructure, any other housing plans in the area, comps, etc. And it's what it's going to do is it's going to give you a deal, whatever parameter you're looking for. If you're looking for a piece of land, if you're looking for a house to flip, if you're looking for a roof raiser, it automatically it takes those parameters and sends it to your phone the second it is listed, which is, I mean, incredibly valuable.
Yeah.
I mean, right now it sounds like it's easy. Like you could search on Zillow for a 3-bedroom house, and as soon as it hits the market, it comes. But there's nothing for the more calculated investor who's looking for a certain product to take advantage of.
Right.
There's nothing out there.
So currently the process is, if you're looking for a particular product, Pete, could you pull up a smart sheet? Okay. I'm sorry, not a smart sheet, a hot sheet. So this is the hot sheet for from the 14th to the 21st. So go ahead and just rip down there, and let's show folks. This is the kind of data that you would have to pour through. This is for a week work of product. So if you can imagine sitting down and trying to vet each one of these individual listings.
The hot sheet is all new listings that are popping up.
Right. So anything new to market, this is where investors and buyers find the latest and greatest.
So traditionally, you're going to have to open up every single listing. You're going to have to calculate all your numbers. You're going to have to calculate the area. You're going to have to calculate your pricing to see if it's a deal and to determine if it's a deal.
And then you have to try and get in touch with an agent.
Then you have to try to get in touch with the agent.
Good luck with that.
So basically, essentially, what we're doing is it's being calculated instantly for you, and giving you the agent's contact instantly.
Right.
So I mean, the name of the game is time.
That's it.
The early bird gets the worm. The first one there gets the property. So we're we're combining, I would say, mathematic and financial technology with the technology of convenience to get speed, basically.
Deals.
Yeah. Just
Deals.
Quick.
So without giving up too much, and we actually have a meeting with our app developer, a Zoom session right after this podcast, and you're going to essentially be able to get rid of all this noise, and the system is going to do the work for you in
real time.
In real time. You'll be able to set your parameters once. Never have to revisit it unless you want to change your metrics.
Depending on the market, it's going to work in different markets too as well. If you want to change metrics from a New York City metro to a suburban New Jersey market, it'll work everywhere.
And it'll deliver to you only the deals that you know this property already meets your criteria.
Yes.
So
and only the deals you quantify as a deal.
Right.
So we're not quantifying the deal.
That's right.
But
that's the beauty of it.
Your whatever you consider a deal, that's what you're going to see. You're not going to see all this other junk out there with potential a deal. What we're also doing too as well, we're kind of taking out a lot of sometimes agents report information improper on properties. We're getting a lot of all that minutia out of there and just focusing on straight numbers, because the numbers don't lie. No matter how many times you look at it, numbers do not lie.
Right.
Yeah.
So what we found and I'm sure this is the same in everyone's industry, but we've got a lot of tech people that are trying to develop real estate software.
Yep.
And if you're not in the game, you don't understand the value of time, the process by which you would normally source a deal. So we've looked at all of the softwares. We've looked at all of these different programs that have been developed, all of these different apps. And we always come back to the amount of work and energy you have to put into trying to retrofit this thing.
There's always something missing.
Yeah, there's something missing,
always.
Or it takes so much time to get it to do what you want it to do because they're thinking like a tech person would think. So we reversed that. We brought in a tech developer and an app developer, and we basically built the footprint, and they're now doing the behind the scenes thing to actually make this work. This will disrupt how deals are sourced in the entire country.
I mean, one aspect, you're going to be getting deals. So you're going to be making
deals.
Money. Two, time. Your time now is freed up to do whatever you please with, whether spend time with the family, whether it make more money focusing on something else. It's a no-brainer, and it's quite honestly, we're excited because we're now in beta after thinking about all this. We have a working product right now. It's really truly incredible to see what we believed what would happen actually in front of your face, actually happening, and it popping deals out. I mean, day one. I mean, it popped out like 7 deals on a pretty tough criteria that we set, and 7 deals popped up.
So that was our barometer.
That's just in actually one area of Staten Island, 7 deals popped up. I mean, the whole island we didn't even get to yet.
Right. So the basically the bar we set was, if this doesn't make what we do with all of our inside knowledge and our insights and our instincts and our access to a whole staff of people here, if it didn't empirically improve how we're currently sourcing deals, it was going to hit the cutting floor.
Yep.
We were not going to do it. And it does, folks.
It does.
It is exciting. We are going to really deliver value to our customers in a big way. So we're really close. I don't think we're more than a month or 2 out from being able to really put the finishing touches on this app.
I mean, we're
it's not even an app yet.
No, it's cloud-based right now, which is great. But we're there. We are there.
Exciting stuff.
Yeah.
So we're working together in that capacity. We're getting Stag moving to try and capitalize on the M property run. Again, folks, if you take anything away from this podcast, take a look at M property. There's a tremendous opportunity coming there. I wanted to talk a little bit more, Bri, about our working relationship.
Yes.
And some of the growth, some of the frustrations, some of the things that we've experienced, because I think it's important to share the ups and downs that we've gone through so our audience can understand it's not as simple as, oh, everything is hunky-dory and everyone is happy and everyone is, everything looks great over there. There's been a process here.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're all passionate. We're all passionate here, which is why it makes this company great. Because we all care.
We all care.
We all care.
We all think that what we're doing is in the best interest of everybody. And I learned the hard lesson that doing what you think is right for everyone without explanation is not nearly enough, because people see it differently and don't understand. It's not good enough to have best intentions. You have to communicate. And I started taking some of these leadership courses with Chad over at Lions Pride, and Brian and I attended a couple of sessions, and the takeaway was we don't hear what we're both saying in the same way. Yep. In fact, many times we hear something completely different. And that's not anyone being disingenuous or anyone not being honest, or it's just legitimately how you say what you say, and the way it's presented is so unbelievably valuable, and I didn't get that. Yeah. So we went through some tough runs, and we still go through some tough runs.
Well, without a doubt, and also, I mean, I came in the company at a time where I was young, so I mean, you've seen my life transform over the last 11 years, from going to a college kid to now having a family and everything in between there. I mean, it's definitely a learning curve on my part, and I want to thank you so much for the opportunity. I mean, you are my biggest mentor without a doubt, and I wouldn't be here today, obviously, from the things that you've taught me and over the years, family-wise, business-wise, et cetera. But I mean, we had our challenges. I mean, I was young in the beginning too, as well. I didn't know. I mean, that's going back to before. That's my personality. I was young, coming out of college. I felt like I could do everything, and I was trying to do everything. And sometimes it was wrong, but my thinking is I'm always going to give it a shot.
And to your credit, without that confidence, I never would be where I am today. I never would have pushed the envelope on so many things. I've traded off. People have the complete misconception of who I am and what my personality really is, because I'm a guy that's going to go and I'm not going to quit, and no one will outwork us for clients. Nobody. And sometimes that gives off the wrong vibe to people. But I have traded off your confidence unbelievably over the years, and having partnerships where there's completely opposite, just inherent core ways of doing things and personalities has really proven to be the best experience for me of my life. Having someone that I know is looking at things entirely different. But like you said in the beginning, we always end up on the same spot.
Because we share one very important trait, which I think it goes back to sports, is we compete. We're competitors. Yeah. We don't like to lose. I mean, we have to be the best almost at everything. We'll at least try to be the best. We give the best to our clients. Give the best to ourselves. I mean, me and him have fishing competitions.
I was just going to say, we can't even fish like normal people.
Everything's a competition, which we've slowed down before, because fishing is our only relaxation now. So we slowed down with that. But
so let's just we're getting a little long here, and we're going to have to wrap it soon. But I do want to talk about that, because we got into fly fishing. Yep. And it was supposed to be this relaxing, go on the river, and
right. You see the eagles,
the beauty of the cast and the fly line gently landing on the water, and me and Brian turned it into trucking through dangerous water. At one point, I saw you going
through the river,
ass over elbows. I have to say, it flying down the river, and you still had to run up in the air.
Then we decided to go to Montana, hike with grizzly bears, go through the river. Yeah, and I mean that speaks to us too as well. Our relaxation hobby is fly fishing, which is one of the most challenging things you can do.
Yes,
it's
hard as it is.
It's who we are. I mean, everything's a challenge.
We spent hours cultivating rules.
Yep.
Well, what happens if you get the fish? Okay,
Yes.
well, if you the fish has to be in the net, and then you have to take a picture of it, and then we had to go by these stupid little tape measures, right? So imagine you're out on the river and you're catching a trout, and it should be a nice, graceful process. You take your forceps and you gently remove the barbless hook and you release. Me and Brian there, the poles in our mouth, holding the net. We got the tape measure out, yelling, I got Brian. I take a look. I got this. It's so ridiculous, but it works.
It works. It definitely works, and it's just our need to challenge ourselves. I mean, quite honestly, I challenge you when you challenge me, which is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
I've enjoyed this podcast. I've enjoyed the working relationship. We're just getting started, man.
No, without a doubt. I'm excited. There's a lot to come. A lot to come for Casandra Properties, for Stag, for CapEx. I mean, there's a lot on the horizon, which I couldn't be more excited for.
Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Good to see you, brother.
You too.
Take care. All right, folks. Thank you for joining us today. We have some wonderful guests lined up in the future. I think we're booked already now, Petey, almost out until October at this point. So we're really excited about this. Thank you, everyone, for your support. We're now in the top 50% of all podcasts on Apple, which is like so amazing and so cool. As we said in the beginning, we have an international audience already. Again, amazing. Please keep the comments coming, the ideas, the suggestions. And if you want to be on the show, drop us a line. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe.